Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Art Power HK online talk program. I'm Sherry Chan, the chairperson of Renaissance Foundation, an organization that nurtures and discovers new talents across different genres of the arts. I'm delighted that you are joining us today for the 16th installment of the Art Power HK online program. In today's discussion, we will talk about funding the arts for the future. So first, funding. I dare say all arts organizations around the world are looking for funding avenues now, given that many usually that host large bodies of audience are no longer able to do so. Then of course, there's the future. What are we going to do in the coming world of new normal? What are some of the long-term funding strategies and workable solutions for pressing financial and practical concerns facing artists, institutions, and the art ecosystem? I'm your moderator today, and I am very delighted to have with me three distinguished speakers who have relentlessly dedicated themselves to the common good in the arts and culture world. First of all, we have Nancy Lee, who is the chairman of the Friends of Hong Kong Art Museum since 2005. She's also on the board of the Advisory Council of Princeton University Art Museum, as well as a trustee of the New York University Institute of Fine Arts, and is also a board member of the Freer Sackler Galleries of the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you, Cherry.
Next, we have Teresa Kwong, who is the program director of our much beloved Hong Kong Arts Center. She led the IFVA Awards and Festival from 2004 to 2014. She is also a member of the International Advisory Board of Objectives and the Board of Directors of Contemporary Music in Hong Kong. Teresa was the recipient of the Asian Cultural Council Star Foundation Fellowship in 2007 when she participated in residence programs at arts organizations in the United States. Welcome, Teresa.
Hello, hi.
And that leads very nicely into, last but not least, Mr. Hans Michael Jebsen, the chairman of Asian Cultural Council Hong Kong. Michael is active in various NGOs and charities, in addition to his role at Asia Cultural Council Hong Kong. He is a member of the advisory board of Hong Kong Red Cross, and he established the Jebsen Educational Foundation in 1995. And he is now also the chairman on the corporate advisory board of the Hong Kong UST Business School. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks.
Okay, now that we have all of you here, why don't you tell us a little bit about your organization? Shall we start with Nancy? So we all know the MOA has recently moved to a new home and has reopened. So who are the Friends of the Hong Kong Art Museum?
Well, I'm delighted to tell you about our museum because after a 4-year major renovation, it has reopened on the waterfront in Tsim Sha Tsui. So our museum has been in operation since 1962 and was originally founded in the City Hall and moved to the present site in 1991. And at that time, they founded the Friends of the Hong Kong Museum of Art, and we will be celebrating our 30th anniversary this coming year. So the Friends of the Museum tries to support the museum in many different aspects, but primarily through outreach programs to the community, as well as membership programs for our members. So if you're a member of the Friends, you can attend our lectures, gallery tours, visits to artist studios, and overseas trips, and many other programs. But our outreach programs are really really reach out to the community. For example, we have a free bus transportation for all local schools to regularly come to the museum during their exhibitions. So each year, tens of thousands of students will come through this program. In the summer, we have a summer art cadets program for underprivileged children, where we invite children from minority groups, the visually impaired, young cancer patients. We have worked with ADHD students, all from all parts of the community. And the children will come to the museum for 6 to 8 weeks, and we'll work with artists from morning until afternoon. They'll be served lunch, and over this period of time, we see an incredible transformation in those children. So this is a program we are very proud of. And in addition, we have a monthly concert at the museum in which we present young professional musicians for 1 hour every first Sunday of the month, where they play pieces of their choice and they get to talk about it a little bit. And over time, we have built up an audience for this concert. At the last concert we were able to hold at the museum before the COVID lockdown, we had nearly 400 people attending.
Wow.
So it's a very, very impactful program for many families who may not normally go to concerts. In addition, the museum has every other year a contemporary arts competition, and the winners, the 10 top winners of that competition, the Friends will support a travel grant for them to enable them to leave Hong Kong and see things that they normally are out of their range, and to expose them to arts outside. We have other programs, but I think those are the main things. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Very impactful and inspirational programs, especially for the younger population in Hong Kong. And Michael, could you tell us a little bit about the Asian Cultural Council, please?
Yeah, thanks. Well, the Asian Cultural Council, or ACC as it's known, really has its roots in the Cold War, because it was John D. Rockefeller III who had a great interest and I would say love for Asia, and who was also a very cosmopolitan individual who said something has to be done to bridge the cultural gap, particularly with Asia. Remember, it was the Vietnam War at the time. So John D. Rockefeller and his wife Blanchette, who were both very interested in setting that up, were really trailblazing the first cultural exchanges, sending US citizens to Asia and inviting Asian citizens to the US, mostly New York in the beginning, to meet their peers and to have a free exchange of ideas. So it wasn't so much a program as lectures or so, but it was giving them a platform to get to know their peer group. And in, I think, all cases, these individuals consider that a transformative experience in their life, which really opened eyes, not only to a new part of the world, but to being on your own, to find your own way around, etc. And the ACC is creating programs in as much as they introduce these individuals to individuals of interest. That has now existed since the mid-60s, 1960s, and in Hong Kong since the mid-80s. We've had many hundreds of individuals, and Teresa is one of our proudest examples from widely different areas. So it's not only music or visual arts. We're talking about people that are in traditional arts in Indonesia. We also have inter-Asian exchange programs. So people from the Chinese mainland go to Indonesia or to Singapore, and. So all these constellations have made us one of those few, I think, worldwide organizations in cultural exchange who can really tell the story. And that story is best told by the alumni. The alumni are as diverse and as engaged in let me say, real life, so to speak. We're not in a bubble, but these are educators, these are museum directors, these are people in the arts, both in Hong Kong and China, and of course, in many other places in the world. So I would say the most valuable thing there is in the hearts and minds of our alumni, who have a huge network, partly because of us, and can bridge all these gaps, both culturally and other dividing lines that are these days so much of a stumbling stone. So we have a very engaging circle of friends in Hong Kong and members who are both funding, but I would say who contribute with the 3 W's, their wisdom, their work, and their wealth, and that's of course the funding issue. So I'll close with that. Cultural exchange is what we believe in.
Wonderful. I think that would be the 4th W. It's a very wonderful organization. Thank you, Michael. And Teresa, Hong Kong Arts Centre is more of a household name out of the three organizations that we have with us today. Could you tell us a little more what you're doing recently?
Okay, great. I'm so honored to have the chance to speak with two other wonderful guests, Michael and Nancy, and also because the organization they represent which is the Museum of Art and also ACC, provide. I mean, it's mean a lot to the Hong Kong art scene and provide a lot of nutrition to the Hong Kong art lover. So talking back to Hong Kong Art Centre, we found in 1977, and our headquarters is in Wan Chai Harbour Road. We are a non-profit making art organization promoting contemporary art and artists. Yeah. So I mean, today's topic is really relevant to us because we are a non-profit making private organization. So we have to, in the past 40-something years, we have to be self-financed to be able to promote the kind of program and art we believe in. Just briefly introduce, I mean, our business, because today we are talking about funding and philanthropy. So maybe I would briefly, introduce to you all about our unique business model. We have a building which is 16th floor in Wan Chai, and we own the building. Yeah, and so we occupy a few floors. Other than our office space, we also have venue, including gallery, cinema, and theater. And other than our own use, we also rent it out to other artists or art group in Hong Kong. And at the same time, we also rent out office space to other organizations in Hong Kong, including Hong Kong Art Festival, including the Goethe Institute. They're also based here at the Art Center. So this is our major funding source, which is we receive rent from our tenant or hirer. So this is our major income. Other than that, we also rely on sponsorship and funding from the government or from different kind of foundation. And last but not the least, we also have a box office as well. So so this is how we could maintain self-finance and remain independent in the last 40-something years. So this is just give you a summary of our own business model. So talking about the program, which is my area, we are multi-art center. We have visual arts, performing arts, moving images, and art learning. So in a way, we are, we're talking about, we try to explore the possibility of doing more interdisciplinary art exploration. And same as ACC, we also do a lot of cultural exchange projects.
Wonderful. So Teresa, given the myriads of issues going on in this chaotic world, are there people asking us, so why should people still fund the arts when there are people who are hungry, unemployed, suffering politically, and even locked up and not be able to just be themselves? What do we say to people who tell us that, what is the value of the arts to society? What would you say?
Well, I think this is a very good question, and we keep asking ourselves in the last 12 months, or so. I think this is back to our motto. We believe art is for everyone. That means that no matter where you're coming from, about your background, you could still have the you could still enjoy arts. Yeah, basically it's part of our daily life. I remember at the very beginning of our conversation, we said that art basically is important for our heart and mind. Yeah, so we have to eat and drink every day. So do arts, because art could provide nutrition, to our mind and heart. And we also believe that art have a special purpose has a healing purpose, and also have the power to empower people. Yeah, so it's more, so basically we are not just for survival, but we could we could express ourselves, and also we could also connect with other people.
Thank you. Very well put. Thank you, Teresa. So Michael, what do you say to people who question the value of the arts, or put us on a lower down the hierarchy than say the other issues in life?
I was just busily writing down what Teresa said. I think it's extremely valid. Let me say this. I think we have to look at the arts in a totally different way. It's not a luxury, or it's not a decoration piece. The art is at the very heart of the identity of every individual. And the art has nothing to do with money in that sense. Often we think too fast in terms of collecting expensive things. No, the arts is really who we are, how we express ourselves. And Teresa mentioned purpose. I think purpose is so important, giving our lives meaning, and and really being very much a realm in which we can ask the bigger questions, the more fundamental questions. And look at this time of crisis. Of course, not only a financial crisis or a health crisis, but it can easily become also a crisis that's even deeper. What's the meaning of it all, etc. There's so much collateral damage to the minds of individuals these days. I think the arts have never been more important. Look at what music does to people, and you can't lock a symphony away into a safe, right? Just to use that example. The arts are with us, whether we know it or not. And I think they give us identity. And having lived in Hong Kong the past 40 plus years, I can see how the arts really have become a very much part, not only part of our lifestyle, but a part of our own identity in so many ways. That's why I would say times of crises are times where the arts are especially important and not a marginal issue. They strike right at the heart of who we are and how we want to be and how we communicate with each other.
Wonderful, thank you. Nancy, what would you have to say to this issue?
Well, I think we have two wonderful speakers who express a great deal of what is important about art. In some ways, art can serve different functions at different times. And in a way, also, it is a sign of maturity of society at a certain point, that it reaches a threshold where your basic needs to some extent have been satisfied, and there's a need to create, to express, to inspire, to be inspired, and to connect. And sometimes art can even be used in some sense politically. But I think I agree with what everyone has said. It nurtures the soul, and it's part of our being humans. And if you go back in history, you see that even cavemen left vestiges of art to try to express their feelings about their environment. So it's a very fundamental kind of urge that we have. In this moment, it is, people can focus very much on the marketing of art as a commodity. And that may seem like a more, that's a very specific kind of area, but it's also important for keeping the arts going. So over time, Hong Kong has slowly evolved an ecology that includes all aspects of art. So from the non-profit organizations like ours to the institutions, the museums, the public, the things that are cultural, all the cultural institutions. And then you have also the art galleries, the art fairs, the auction houses, all of them together form like a cultural ecology, and all of them are important in making Hong Kong what it is today. So whether this can be sustained at the levels that we had before, which depended very much on people traveling to Hong Kong, and for mainland visitors, you know, coming to see certain things, collectors attending the fairs, art galleries and their customers, all of them were meaningful. And so I think we need to find a way forward to bring the arts forward. And as to, as a way for nurturing the young, art seems to me very, very important to make them accessible to their own emotions, to be able to think out of the box, to be creative, to express themselves. So art has many, many functions. And I think very few people would say that arts are not relevant. They are very, very, very relevant in this age. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. I totally agree with that. And dovetailing on the point of COVID wreaking havoc in the world, I mean, it must have brought so many challenges to your organization. So let's say, Michael, especially ACC, your organization is about connecting people across different locations, and they almost must travel to make it happen. So what are the recent challenges, and what has ACC done to overcome some of them?
Well, we do obviously share the same challenges that everybody else does. I mean, travel restrictions are, of course, very much in the way of connecting people physically. And of course, we do have a need, and we also have an urge to be with people. It's different when somebody is in the room or on the screen. I mean, we all experience that. Mm-hmm. I think it's okay when we know people well, but when we don't, I think it would be certainly an advantage to be there in person. But I mean, human beings are extremely adaptable. They're also extremely inventive, and they're very tough to endure, you know, times of crisis like these. So I would say this: let's learn from this situation. I refuse to say it's a new normal. I don't think it. I certainly hope it will not be. But let's say it's a model B, and we have to deal with that model B now. I mean, it's not a war. Right? I mean, it's not a war, and not everybody is ill. So, I mean, but we have to be very cautious, obviously. So I would say all those creative brains in the arts, because they know how to connect. It's amazing to see all the initiatives that happen, although we have distancing. We have open air concerts here and there where that's possible. I've seen that in Europe. We have, of course, a lot more web seminars, et cetera, where people really, you know, participate in a very lively fashion. So this opens up a new dimension, certainly in all of our lives, certainly in my life. But is it ideal? No. I mean, proximity versus distancing, I think we know where we would rather like to be. But let's use this time to see, you know, how we can be both creative. And the essence of the mission of art, of course, does not go away because we can't physically be in one place right now. I mean, look at the radio. When the radio was first introduced, this was the huge dissemination of, you know, musical art, which before was totally impossible. You know, I think the internet makes so many things possible today that I would say it's the next best thing to being there. But obviously we know what we've had when we don't have it any longer. And we now, I think, have to see how we can live with that. But I can only say there are, of course, many issues which are very difficult to solve. That is the livelihood of artists, for instance, who cannot perform, or self-employed individuals, or look at all the events that have been canceled. I mean, in January, I started a personal list of all the things that were canceled. I've given up on that list because
too long.
So I would say it is a huge challenge, but I'm confident that we can learn from this challenge and even perhaps double up our efforts to connect amongst the arts community. I'd say that's a real chance. I feel it's happening.
Yeah, I think there are some good practical solutions coming out of the situation, which we can also address later. Nancy, what has happened at Friends of HKMOA and also at HKMOA with COVID?
Yes, well, as you know, our museum had to close twice, and but it's recently reopened. So I think it is just part of the current situation where they will do as much as it's possible. But I do foresee a time when we could be fully opened and all the programs will be ongoing. It definitely has affected the Friends programs for our members. We've had to cancel. We basically not so much cancel, but we're not being able to gather and go to places to see things. But we have been presenting Zoom lectures. We have recorded our concerts and broadcasted through the website. We're doing as much as possible. I'm rather sad that our programs for the children could not be held. Looking forward to when the time that they can be back on.
Yeah, we look forward to that too. Teresa, how about at the Art Center? What's been happening with COVID?
Well, it's a long story. I think same for other organizations in Hong Kong. We have a lot of up and downs since Chinese New Year. For the first few months, we have a lot of, well, we constantly doing cancellation or program postponement. So every day we have to start again. So it's quite frustrated for the first 3 months. But I would say we learn a lot during the process, and in a way, we often said, yes, we have crisis, we have challenge, but we can depends on how you see it, because we are art people, we're supposed to be creative. So that's why I think it's a good exercise for all of us to stay positive, optimistic, creative, but at the same time being realistic. So I would say starting from June, for the first 3 months, we, as I said, we got frustrated, and we have to deal with a lot of ad hoc issue every day, and we have our own limitation as well, both in terms of time, both in terms of resources. But I think starting from June, we start to pick up ourselves, and we are now it's September. I think we are now in the steady pace, even though sometimes we still have setback, to pick up, given our limited resources, to explore what is meant by online programming. Yeah, because because before, most of our program is either taking place in a venue like in the center, or we also do a lot of public art program that is taking place outdoor. But because of the COVID, none of them, we could not do it like before. So we have to explore new approach. That is what I said, online or virtual space could be a possibility, or we still think maybe there is something interesting going on between the physical event and also the virtual event. That is what we say hybridity. So that is that is what we are now. Yeah, but I think that is not an easy time, definitely, but that could be an interesting time, yeah, to do something new, yeah, and thinking. That is what we say, trying to thinking out of the box, given all the limitation that we have.
Yes, so on that note of hybridity, of innovation, creativity, have you seen good practical solutions, or have you found good practical solutions and longer term survival strategy coming out of the arts ecosystem, either in Hong Kong or beyond, that you would like to share with us?
Okay. Well, maybe I could. I just think of two examples that we've been doing, that we have been exercising in the last few months. Maybe that could give you some insight. Yeah. So yeah, I would like to show some slide. Okay. The slide, please.
Because,
yeah.
Hi. Yes, we do have someone helping us, Frankie. Yeah. It's great.
Okay, so we could go to the next slide, please. The next one. Okay, we go back to the building. Yeah. Well, as a sum up, I mean, starting from 1977, our mission still the same. Still the same. It's try to serve as a hub or platform to nurture and support art and artist development in Hong Kong. So I think this is, even though in the last few months we have a lot of challenge setback, I think, but this is the mission that we keep reminding ourselves that how, given all the difficulty and limitation that we have, how we could still serve as a platform to support the local art and artist development. Yeah, and I would like to go to the first example. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, this is a project which is initiated by a theater group called Project Roundabout. It is initiated by theater professional, and they, I still remember they gave us a call back in April, because that time basically all the things for the art scene kind of stopped. That means that the artists, not only the artists, but also if we're talking about the theater scene, the backstage people, basically they could not work. Yeah, so it's kind of stuck, and that means they have no income. So the Project Roundabout, they come up with a very creative, innovative idea. It's what if, because they have network, back to what Michael said. Actually, two of them are ACC grantee. So they have network, and they think maybe they could approach some of the funder in Hong Kong, which would like to also do something to the art scene. And so they got the money. Of course, if they are, well, something very direct, it's maybe they just give the money to the theater people, to the backstage people, like to give them like a subsidies. That would be very straightforward. But they kind of thought, we are all creative people. Basically, we want to work, we want to express themselves, especially during this kind of challenge time. So they thought maybe they could group together again. And instead of put up a full stage performance, they kind of thought maybe they could do script reading workshop, which is lower budget, but at the same time, they will have the chance for people to get together and work together. And so they got this idea. So they approached us and they asking our center if we could work with them, be one of the partner, because they know we have venue. And of course, we are very much interested. So I think within a month, all the party get into place, and we could launch this program in June. So what I mean by different party, it's we have an idea, we group the funder, they give the resources. We, the art organization, art center, we provide venue support, and also we have our technician support. For the Project Roundabout, they also reach out to approach the theater people. They recruit the backstage people. They recruit local screenwriter. And also, they also approach because nowadays we really much rely on internet. So a very strong technical partner is very important. So because of that network, the U domain also get into place. So in June, we have 2 whole week show in our Susan Theatre. That means we could also have audience to watch the play in the theater, but of course with limited quantity because of the restriction. But at the same time, all these workshops could be available online. That means that all these local script writer, all their work could be reached all over the world. Yeah, so so I would say this project is called See You Soon. Is a good demonstration of a good marriage among different stakeholders in the scene, and not only money-wise, because we also have a very good box office, but I think most important is during the time where most of us has to be stay at home, we have to work from home, we could still reach out to enjoy, and we could be entertained and got inspired. So I would say this is a very good example during the COVID period, how different stakeholders could get together, and with the funder support, we could still, how can I say, we could still maintain, our connection with arts. And so that is I think this is one of the good example. Yeah.
Thank you, Teresa.
Yeah.
So, Michael, what do you think? You've mentioned some of the examples you've seen in Europe with more webinars and etc. Have you seen like really good solutions that you think we can adopt in Hong Kong?
Well, I think the key issue is to think out of the box, and Teresa put it very well. People in the arts are there to be creative. So I mean, this is the time to be creative. Of course, we might think that everything that is not as we used to have it is less exciting, less interesting. I would say where we now need the extra effort to connect, the extra effort to access art, people all of a sudden become very interested. I mean, like virtual walk through museums, right? Where you can enjoy, if you like, every single object without the crowds around you or the small talk or whatever. So I'm not saying it's an advantage, but I think we have to see at certain upsides where we can in fact be creative. Let's say this, we live in a dynamic process, and many of the things that happen now through COVID, and I don't mean the arts necessarily only, are perhaps developments that would have been there anyway. They've just been sped up. So we do 10 years in one, if you like, whether that goes for e-commerce or it goes for, people learn musical instruments now via the internet. I talked to an artist from the mainland who did Qing, the traditional instrument, and I asked her, how many students do you have? And I thought, well, perhaps 20, 30 or so. No, she said 6,000. And I think this for me illustrates that there are many issues that in fact will stay, or many solutions that will stay, that are not just COVID emergency surrogates of what we otherwise would like to do. I think in the musical world, people now give concerts from remote places and even play together from different sort of locations. I think it must be very difficult, but it seems to be happening. I think the importance is that we don't lose heart, but that we see this positive challenge that we can overcome. And as I think both Nancy and Teresa stressed, Hong Kong now has a very, very rich art scene, which is both East and West, which is both the traditional arts and contemporary arts, it is also an international arts hub. Hong Kong is a hub for many things now. It's not just a shipping place, it's a place for finance and for arts and for food, etc., etc. So the arts are very much at par with the mainstream. So I would again wish to be an optimist in saying this is now a time where people really are called to the front to come up with solutions which will not only overcome the COVID situation, but also the social divide, if you like, right? I mean, how can we make everybody participate in art, which has nothing to do with entrance tickets, with being able to afford expensive flights to go to the Met or, you know, whatever. I think at the universities, we're talking a lot about what's the future of education? Will it all be on screens and will it be accessible? And what a great social equalizer that would be, because you could save a lot of fees, but I don't want to go there now. I'm just saying, I, for one, would think that both artists and entrepreneurs are there to create solutions and not bemoan the presence or glorify the past. We live now, it is as it is, and I can see the energy of many people, I'm sure also amongst those participating here, who say, we shall overcome. This is going to be a challenge that we are going to solve. And if we can't solve it in Hong Kong, with all that goodwill, and where else would we be able to solve it? So I'm very confident that institutions like the, you know, those present today, the Arts Center and many others, are all part and parcel in coming up with solutions. And I don't think there is one particular, you know, breakthrough thing that solves it all. No, certainly not. These are small steps, but they have to do with technology, they have to do with mindset, they have to do with passion, they have to do with being practical, and that huge urge, I think that word was used quite a few times. I think it's very relevant. This urge, you know, to be a human being, and you know, the arts are what we are.
Thank you, Michael. Nancy, I remember you mentioned Zoom lectures that you're doing at the Friends. And would you tell us a little bit more about that, or other samples that you've done with the organization?
But I would like to first say that the Hong Kong Museum of Art has, during this time, expanded their virtual kind of community. They have an Instagram with 23,000 followers. So in many ways, they've upgraded so much of their virtual content. And it's also put them in touch with museums overseas where they exchange many ideas. So when they are now reopened, the content of the museum on the online platform is so rich and so many things happening. For example, they have an Instagram program, so to speak, travel with the HKMOA. So you can virtually go to different places and look at art, or you can help curate a sort of an exhibition together with other people by contributing your own favorite works of art. So there are many, many things that can happen. And our museum is using this opportunity to really reach out to the younger audiences, to build a community and share this interest during this time. And so the Friends, we started a lecture series in conjunction with the Asia Society, and we also invited the Hong Kong University Museum Society to join us in a series of lectures presented by the Fine Arts Department of the Hong Kong University And so these lectures are ongoing, and they reach out to a much wider audience had we just restricted it to our own membership. And everyone is happy about that, because it seems like we're able to share more through this platform. And also we have started conversations with people who normally would not have been part of our program. And so a lot of things are happening in a very positive way. So I echo Hans Michael's comments that we need to stay positive and engaged and very, very much encouraging of the artists here, because I think we will find ways to go on and grow stronger somehow through the challenges.
I think these wonderful, innovative solutions are really giving us a bit of a silver lining in this chaotic, crazy world. So back to the core issue of funding. What do you think is going to happen to our funding of our organizations from the government, with private patronage, and also with corporate support? Do you already see changes happening, or what would you like to do in this area? Could I ask you, Nancy, about what you've been thinking about for the Friends of HKMOA?
Well, what I realize is that arts funding in Hong Kong is 70% supported by our government. So all the institutions and major programming really are, with exceptions, of course, the Arts Center, we just heard about it, and ACC doesn't really receive government support. But by and large, many of the concerts, the theater, the art museums, they really are part of the government portfolio. And so they are a very, very important component of the cultural development going forward for Hong Kong. And that would, of course, include West Kowloon and Tai Kwun and all these other programmings and institutions. Going forward, you know, the arts really depend on a combination of government support, private institutions, private corporations and individuals. So I hope that support for the arts will not suffer too much as long as the COVID, we can see an end towards it. I think many companies now support the arts or have added an element of the arts into their own commercial pursuits, and many of the property developers, they enjoy having arts in their own facilities. And so this is an expansion of how arts can grow in this community. And individual support has always been important as well, but it's a smaller community, and we have to be mindful that in Hong Kong, at least many of our programs serve the wider public, and this has to be sustained through a combination of the above.
Very well put. Thank you, Nancy. Teresa, what do you think is going to happen with the Hong Kong Arts Center on the funding front, other than the very innovative programs that you've put in place?
I would say the traditional way of doing fundraising, we will still have to do it, but we will expect maybe they may cut their budget, or maybe there may be a lot of competition as well from all the other art group or organizations. So that's why we have to be more proactive, and also to come up with some, different program or scheme, that hopefully could be appealing to the funder.
Thank you. Michael, how about at ACC? What's happening with the funding?
Let's make no bones about it. Funding is a challenge, no doubt. I mean, everything is a challenge during COVID, so I think we're not alone here. I wouldn't single that out. I think the important thing is that government sees art as a core area, because it has to do with education, it has to do with the mental well-being of our citizens, etc. So I think we have already gotten very far in that process, because only 20 years ago, this 70% certainly wasn't there. And I think just going to large public events in the arts, I think tell us one thing: the arts cut right through all layers of society. Recent arrivals, old established people in Hong Kong, etc., etc. So it is also a great melting pot, right? And we need that melting pot for social cohesion, for social harmony, for prosperity. So I would have no difficulties to find reasons why government should do even more. I would say sports and arts should be treated in a similar fashion, both where it comes to sponsorship and to the government funding. Of course, sports has an advantage here and there because they can sell their air rights. This is more difficult in the arts to the same extent. I would say Teresa and Nancy mentioned so many relevant things. Let me just add that the alumni of organizations like ours are, of course, the prime source of great ideas because they have their finger on the pulse. Not only that, they're also the trailblazers. I mean, some are spearheaders, others are followers. So we have you, the alumni, as spearheaders, and I think it would be good for the community to listen to these ideas. That is why the arts community is so bubbly in Hong Kong, because people come with new ideas. If I would have one wish, that is that we engage and listen to those people who are in the very much the people of tomorrow, right? The young kids who are born with a computer, if you like, who can relate to this new situation in a totally different fashion. I mean, for somebody like me, I am adapting, I'm catching up, but I'm not spearheading in this realm. Whilst young individuals, they think totally different. And I think this will be a chance to propel ourselves forward. But funding, you know, without money, everything is just words, obviously. So we need to put, I think, our money where our mouth is. And secondly, there may be even models where we have to spend down on endowments, right? These are times where we have to put into survival mode. And there, I think, the spend down or larger drawdown on funds that would otherwise be only drawn down very carefully is necessary, because this is what it's for. That's what I would add to that.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you all for a very illuminating session today. Before we sign off for the evening, we have some questions from the audience that I think would also be interesting topics of conversation. So coming from the audience, to all speakers, while government funding is going to the arts organizations, very much like the ones that we are representing, it seems very hard for independent or freelance artists and practitioners to get support. So what are some ways that these independents can get financial support for themselves? Anyone like to open on this one?
Well, I'm happy to answer part
Thank
of
you.
it. I think in order to go forward, Hong Kong artists, in a way, need to go out into the world, because Hong Kong is a city of 7-point-something million people, but the world is very large. And in the past, when we had outside visitors in Hong Kong looking at art, it was a way for them to connect with our local artists. I think it's quite important to bring the platform out to the world, because there is interest in Chinese contemporary art, and we are part of that scene. And I think there are opportunities, but they need to be explored, and we have to be bold sometimes in promoting Hong Kong art in the world.
Thank you, Nancy. Teresa?
Okay, maybe I could also share my my idea. Basically, I would say you are not alone, basically. So I think instead of just, I think it's better you work with other people. I think, during our discussion today, we keep on talking about words like network or common good. I think, this kind of challenging time, only an individual could not solve the issue. I think it's a bigger one. So if people get together, if we believe in collective wisdom or collective resources, energy, whatever, we could make a miracle together. So I would say, as a freelance or individual artist, not just stay in your own room. Maybe you have to be more proactive than before. and also I would suggest to be. I think Michael just mentioned one word, which I believe, which I totally agree, is talking about entrepreneurship. Yeah, so I think artists themselves, instead of just waiting people or invitation from the other organization, maybe he or she could be more proactive to reach the other people, to come up with proposal to organization and try to do something together. And I would like to take the opportunity to do some promotion about our new scheme. It's called Curator for Tomorrow. Basically, again, it's a partnership. We got a private donor. He has an intention to support the art scene during this difficult time. So he donated us some money with a will to support the emerging curator and artist from Hong Kong. And so now we are doing the open call, and we will be giving out, they are going to be 4 successful, we will give out 4 opportunity to 4, not only individual, but maybe it could be a team of emerging curator or artists. They could have their own exhibition, happenings, or performance in our experimental gallery. And if you are being selected, you will be given 60,000 Hong Kong dollar to make your project happen. So so I think this is just one of the opportunity for the local artists to be considered. Again, what I mentioned before, it's I think during this kind of difficult time, it is important not only for our center, but for everyone to think not just for themselves, but hopefully to connect with other people and to find for the common good.
Thank you, Teresa. So on that very optimistic and encouraging note, we have another question. What do you see as the biggest opportunities for the Hong Kong art scene? Anyone like to speak? I'm connecting to you digitally. I actually cannot see all of you, so please speak up if you have, if you could add to the.
If I may just say one word,
yes.
the word is China, because the world is mesmerized by China.
Mm-hmm.
And we are very much, as we know, as the crossroad, and one of the great opportunities of Hong Kong is to translate China, to open the window and see the mountain, you know, this sort of thing. So I think that we have to see ourselves also in the context of all China rather than so-called only Hong Kong. And when I think about all those individuals who are world quality and not sufficiently known outside our own borders, I think we probably need a little more self-confidence and say Hong Kong is a very important part of the reality of the great diversity of the Chinese culture. And here we have a role to play individually and collectively. And that's why people visit Hong Kong, to understand China. And our artists are very much part of those who have clues to the understanding of the developments that are taking place.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, I would say the biggest opportunity for us doing art is to maybe to reevaluate what we've been doing in the past. We could keep something good, but I think it's also the time to think, to take some new approach. I think it may be the time. I think yesterday we have a conversation because now traveling seems to be very difficult, and now the artists maybe they have to spend longer time in one place. and we can't afford residency. Yeah, I think maybe that's also relevant to ACC. It's, you know, because we have to stay longer in something abroad. And I think it's a good time for people to, you know, to be slower and to be spend more time to do research and development. And I think yeah, I think artist residency could be something that we could do more in the future.
Interesting idea. Yeah.
Great. Nancy?
Well, I am aware that our museum works very closely with local Hong Kong artists to promote their works, and that the top floor of the museum is dedicated to them, actually 2 floors to Hong Kong art. And so the promotion of Hong Kong artists is very much on their minds. And I think going forward, I agree with very much with what Michael just said, that we are part of China, and that's a very large horizon. I hope that our artists can set their sights wider and further afield. And I think many of them are already part of a sort of worldwide conversation about the arts. And I think the return of visitors to Hong Kong will be crucial to further expanding that connection. So I hope all these things will happen in good time. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, everyone, for a very fruitful hour-long conversation that has taken us from funding and beyond to the future and given us a lot of hope about what's to come with the arts in Hong Kong. So for now, goodbye, good evening.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay.
Bye, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.